Alright, I'm gonna go out on a bit of a limb here and probably risk upsetting quite a few people with a very mediocre hot take. But as a general rule, I don't really enjoy puzzles in video games. Even in games that I enjoy, right? I tend to avoid puzzles like the plague, or leave them until the very last minute if there's something that I really have to do. And it sounds silly because pretty much all of game design revolves around problem solving, and because of that, tons of things within video games can be regarded as puzzles. Getting from one point of a room to another over an obstacle can be a puzzle. But the reason I don't really like them, as a general rule, okay, please don't click off the video just yet, is because they go against the feeling I think good game design should always be reaching for, making people feel like they've accomplished something. Because whenever I can't work something out straight away, I always feel stupid or like I don't have the abilities or tools to solve something. A lot of the time, it just feels like puzzles in video games aren't that well communicated, always only have one solution, and for the most part just end up being a game of guess what's in the developers' heads. Either that, or I am just a bit stupid. Could be that.
The clock tower.
What's that?
It protects endangered plants, like a museum or a nursery. Every plant in the clock tower needs protecting.
What you're seeing is an amazing VR game called The Last Clockwinder. It's available on PSVR 2, MetaQuest platforms, Steam, and it won a bunch of awards when it released last year. There are absolutely games that buck the trend for me in terms of having puzzles that I enjoy solving. The Pathless is a great example of that, but I don't think there's been another game to make me enjoy solving puzzles like The Last Clockwinder has. This game sees you play as Jules, a young woman who grew up in the clockwork tree you find yourself in. When she was young, she lived here with her maternal figure, the last person to don the mantle of the clockwinder in this place, learning and watching as she harvested fruit, plants, and vegetation in a futuristic world that seems to have forgotten the importance of these natural resources. Now, this all-important tree is sinking, and your maternal figure is nowhere to be found. The narrative at play here is really compelling. Who built this tower and for what wider purpose? Where did the Last Clockwinder go? And can you ever get this place up and running so no one needs to micromanage its various rooms? Soon you realize that to get answers to these questions, you'll need to get the clock tower working again. So, you get to work. Using your movements with VR controllers, you create small automatons in the game that will help you harvest each room's resources. Each floor of the tower is a puzzle of its own, asking you to create efficient production lines to get the biggest yields possible. You'll play catch with yourself, you'll think outside of the typical box that video game puzzles put you in, and in the end, you'll stand back in amazement at what you've created. Now, I know, describing it probably sounds really obtuse, confusing, and just a bit weird, but for me, these rooms were a perfect hybrid of environmental puzzle, brain teaser, and creative thinking problem. So let's break it down. Why are the Last Clockwinder's puzzles so good, and how can other games learn from them? Each time the clock tower transforms around you, taking you to a new place, you basically arrive in an empty room. There may be bookcases, stationary tools, or plant beds, but each time you arrive on a new floor, a blank canvas awaits you. Additionally, you aren't bound by the limitations of rigid gameplay mechanics. It's VR, so any movements you can do with your body while standing still are your means of problem solving. Even working out what your goal is isn't directly explained to you. It's up to you to work it out, and that's because giving you the solution would go against the creativity this game's puzzles rely on. Now, working out what to do is something I usually hate about puzzles in video games. Like I mentioned, things usually aren't communicated very well, and it just becomes guesswork that isn't satisfying. It just feels to me like throwing darts while you're blindfolded. But in The Last Clockwinder, there isn't just one answer for you to guess. You create the answer. Take this room for instance, where there's an impractical layout of bookcases between some plants and where you need to deposit their fruits for harvesting. You could create an easy production line of wee automatons to play hot potato with the produce as you weave them between bookcases. Alternatively, you could go over the top, you could go around the side, hell, if you really want to maximize efficiency, why not do all of them? I love the Last Clockwinder's puzzles because they are inherently puzzles, but they're maybe some of the only ones I've come across in games that have multiple correct answers, Breath of the Wild being the only other example I can really think of off the top of my head. There are quote-unquote correct ways of going about things, but not inherently incorrect ones, so long as what you create gets the object from A to B. There are efficient methods you'll discover as you progress, there are inefficient methods you'll learn to improve on, but your harvest rate goes up incrementally depending on what solution you individually want to use, meaning you decide when a puzzle is solved. There's no feeling that some metaphorical game designer in the sky is critiquing your puzzle solutions and saying, "That's the wrong answer, kiddo, try again!" So if the incorrect solution is missing, so is any potential frustration from not being able to work something out. I said that game design should make you feel smart, and not once did I feel stupid while trying to work something in the Last Clockwinder out. So essentially what you have in the Last Clockwinder is a series of sandbox puzzles, and ones that you can come back to as you get further into the game to try and improve on. And this is another stroke of genius because it gives you a feeling of progression in a game where you don't earn new tools and power-ups. I love this because puzzles in other games are always usually about restricting the player. A perfect example for me is the environmental puzzles in God of War Ragnarok, where you'll be shown something in the environment that you don't have the capacity to solve yet, not because you don't have ideas or curiosity, but only because you haven't been given the bespoke in-game item you need for it yet. This never really feels like progression to me, it just stops the momentum of any video game dead. The Last Clockwinder, on the other hand, has a magnificent sense of progression through what you as an individual thinker can come up with. I loved coming back to the first few rooms later on in the game because there was always something I could work on, improve, and streamline based on what I'd learned. And more importantly, I was rewarded for doing so with a higher production count. The only other form of puzzle progression I've really come across in games is when they just get harder, throwing more and more specific problems your way. Yes, in that case, you're usually able to rely and build on what each subsequent puzzle might have taught you, or what each new mechanic allows you to do. But again, this never really feels that satisfying to me. Beyond being given the ability to record longer or shorter movement sequences, there isn't much progression to the Last Clockwinder's player mechanics. The special tools you'll discover in each room are tied to that floor, so they're more of a change to the puzzle than they are an ability that's given to the player to aid them. Either way, the sense of progression here is quite amazing, and that's because the gameplay loop is so rewarding. Hands down, the thing that makes me switch off from most games that have puzzles is the fact that I'll go through the hassle of trying to work something out, only to never really feel like I've been given a tangible reward at the end of it. I don't know, maybe this one's just me. I do have dyslexia, so conforming to the ways that other people think through problems and solutions and stuff is a bit of a struggle for me. So if I've managed that in a game, I always feel like I've accomplished something more than I probably have. But speaking on the whole, what's really the reward for solving puzzles in a game? I mean, the majority of the time it's an in-game reward, right? A score, an item, more resources to use in upcoming levels. These things are great, but they're all examples of external rewards. Very few games understand this, but truly making something feel rewarding is more about accessing an intrinsic feeling of success. A joyful bit of soundtrack and fun animation feels great the first 100 times you see it, but that type of reward never feels tangible in the long run, and will eventually fade. Meanwhile, making someone feel like they've actually achieved something or improved upon what they were already capable of, that's timeless. You don't really get rewards for coming up with new solutions in this game. Instead, you get a considered moment where you get to admire your own handiwork. There's an upper floor to this strange tower in a tree that never changes whenever the room does. I have a sneaky suspicion it's because the developers want you to get up there and look down on what you've created. They want you to enjoy that end result, even if it's just for a brief second. There's something so satisfying about looking at all of the moving parts to the solution that you've made, because you realize that every single one of those isn't actually the little robot you see, it's you. You have done all of these actions successfully, and you are the one keeping the clock tower going. This is a game that promotes positive self-thinking, and unlike the few other games that have done that for me, The Last Clockwinder manages to without being extremely difficult first. I mean, you think of the Celestes and the Souls-likes of the world, I mean, those games are always trying really hard to make you work to get that sense of accomplishment, and this does that in a completely different way. So yeah, I would say that The Last Clockwinder is pretty darn special. Thank you so much for watching! I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please do give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell icon, all that good stuff so that you get notified whenever I upload next. Now tell me, do you have a favorite puzzle game or game with puzzles in it? If you do, please do go down to the comments below and tell me what it is, because I am very intrigued to know. Before I go, I do want to say thank you so much to everyone who has helped us get over 800 subscribers on YouTube. That is crazy, and we are slowly but surely getting towards that 1,000 subscriber mark. All of that support is so appreciated. I mean, especially when I'm quite busy at the moment, so there are months where I don't have time to work on anything, let alone upload. If you do want to see more of me though, I have just started streaming on Twitch more regularly, so if you want to come and chat to me while playing some games, or watch me play some Hunt Showdown and probably die a lot, you can head down to the description. The Twitch link is in there. I do love interacting with people who have watched my content and enjoy it, so definitely come and check it out. That is all from me just now. Thank you so much to everyone for watching. I hope you're all well, and yeah, tune in next time.